When it comes to seed starting, I get a lot of questions. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the entire process of what I do to get great results every time. Hey everybody, Joe Lample here, and I just wanted to show you how I start my seeds. This time last week I was in this very kitchen sowing dozens of varieties of tomatoes and peppers, and a week later, literally exactly a week later, I've got lots of seed trays like this that are looking great. These are tomatoes right here, but I'll show you the other ones downstairs when I take these down under the lights. But this is just exactly 1 week. And so a lot of you have been asking about the process that I use to start my seeds successfully. It's very easy. You only need a few things and it's not expensive. So I thought I would just take this Saturday afternoon, because I have more seeds to sow, and show you the process. It'll be kind of raw. It's just me showing you through the iPhone how to do it, but it ought to give you a good idea of how to replicate exactly the same process and get good results too, okay? So here we go. Let's start with showing you the things that I need to put this all together and make it work. Okay, so this is pretty much everything, and I only have this bag on the table to show you what I use. Now this is a commercial grade seed starting mix. This is Pro Mix, but there are others that are just like it. Basically, let me show you what's in this bag, and by the way, it's 2.8 cubic feet, so it's a pretty good sized bag. I'd say that's at least 4 feet tall, and you can get a lot of seed trays filled out of this. But I love this stuff, a lot better than what you just buy at the box stores. But this is basically peat moss, commercial grade or horticultural grade vermiculite. It's got some pine shavings in here, or ground up bark, I should say, and then a little bit of a wetting agent and some lime to bring the pH up to neutral. And that's it, but it's just really nice to work with, and the plants respond obviously very well. And then, a scoop just to get it into the tray, which is this right here. Now, I like to use these 4-inch deep pots that I'll fill up with the potting mix, or the seed starting mix correctly. And then a tray underneath, a solid tray that doesn't have holes in it, because once I add the water and wet the soil, then I bottom feed the water. So the water is basically being taken up through the holes in the trays, so I'm not wetting the top after the seeds germinate. I'll explain more about that in a minute. But that's why the bottom tray is solid. So I set an insert into the solid tray, and then I'm going to fill it with the soilless mix, and then I'll show you how I disperse the seeds. But the other thing that you should have on hand, of course, besides the seeds, make sure you have your tags right off the bat, because if you don't get your seeds tagged right away, you may forget what's what, and then you're just going to be sorry that you didn't do that right on the spot. So I've learned the hard way, and I make a point of tagging right as I'm adding the seeds. The other thing I'm going to show you in a second as I do it is this little thing right here. Now, it's just one of those measuring cups that you get, a small one that has the tablespoons and the ounces in it. But I found that if I put my seeds into this, it's easy to see the seeds, and then I'll disperse them into these holes, and it's really easy to do that. And you'll get a better sense of that when I do it and show you what I'm doing. And then this green thing right here just holds the overflow or the excess soil that may spill out, or when I overhead water initially to wet the seeds. Obviously, it's nice to have something to be sure you're not spilling over. And yes, I do this in my kitchen. It just seems to work because I have access to water right there, and I have a nice big area to work in, and then I clean up afterwards. So that's the basics of the tools that I need to do everything other than get them down under the lights, and that'll be the last thing I show you today. So let's get some seeds planted. Okay, so once you have everything in place, the first thing I like to do is add the soilless mix into the liner. So that's what this great big scoop is for. You can use really anything, but I just like this. And then you're just getting it in there to fill it up right to the top, because it will settle. But you see how loose this is? It's just nice and fluffy. And this pro-grade material that you can get at a greenhouse supply store, you don't have to be a commercial business as far as I know, but you can look them up online. Griffin Greenhouse Supply is the place that I use. I think they've got locations all over the country if you wanted to check it out. But it's inexpensive when you need to start a lot of seeds and you need a good bulk amount of soil in a bag. That bag was about $16, I think, and it makes a lot of trays. Okay, so that's right up to the top of that soilless mix. And really now the next step is to spread the seed. So let me show you how I do that and where that little measuring cup comes in handy. Okay, so I've made my tags already. I'll show you those. So important to make your tags and to put the date on it. And I also put a code for the company of the where the seeds came from. So in case there's a problem or great success or something, I'll just be able to link that back to the company just for reference purposes. But by the way, there's really good information on that seed pack. You should read that. If you've never done this before, it gives you a good indication of how deep to sow the seeds. Tomatoes go right on the surface pretty much. I'll show you that as we do it. But what I wanted to show you right now, I pour all the seeds into this little cup, okay? And they're in there. You can barely see them. But what's nice about this, and there's supposed to be about 30 seeds in here. And what I'm gonna do is put about 16 seeds in each of these 4-inch compartments. And later, as the seedlings get bigger, I'll divide them up. But what you need to know now is that this is a really efficient way to get a lot of seedlings in a small space. So with 30 seeds or so in there, I put about up to 16 seeds in each 4-inch square. So I'll use 2 of these squares and I'll use up all of these seeds. So I'll be able to tap the seeds out, just work them to the edge, and then I'll be able to lightly get them where I want them to go. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so that's not precise, but that gets you really close. And I'll do the same thing again here, and I'll use up that whole pack within these 2 4-inch square cell compartments. And that'll get me, you know, roughly 15, 16 plants per 4-inch container that I'll divide later. And usually when they say like 30 seeds or whatever the count is on the packet, more often than not, you're getting more than that. It's usually the minimum that you're getting when they have that number there. In this case, I know I've already done about 16 and I have another 8 left. But rather than start another 4-inch cell, I'll just go ahead and find some room to add these remaining seeds. Okay, so those are done, and it wouldn't hurt to put those tags in here right now so I don't forget what I've done. And then I'm just gonna work my way across. I have several other varieties that I'm gonna put into here, and that's the beauty of this, but you can get a lot of different varieties in one tray. And this alone is over 30 plants in just these 2. So that's the idea of kind of a semi-dense planting technique using these 4-inch compartments. So I'll go ahead and finish this out and then we'll take it to the next step. Okay, so the seeds are completely sown right at the surface level. And now all I want to do is lightly cover the seeds with a little more of the soilless seed starting mix. And when you look on the packet and it says sow your seeds 1/4 inch or 1/16 inch deep, I mean, how do you do that really? Well, you do this, you just put them on the surface and then you just go over the top of it lightly. In fact, what I do is I'll take this scoop and then I'll just let some of it sift out through my fingers until I can't see the seeds anymore, and that is good enough. And the only reason you really do this is just to keep some moisture at the above the seed so it doesn't dry out while it's waiting to germinate. That's really all this is for. Now, one optional step I could do here is lightly tamp it down. I don't really want to pack these seeds in at all, but it doesn't hurt to just make sure that the seeds have good contact with the soil above and below. So I'm just ever so lightly evening this out. And then the last thing I'm going to do before I put the dome on this and take it downstairs under the lights is make sure this is nice and watered in. And I'll show you that step next. Okay, it's ready for the water. Now, the most important thing at this point, I like to use warm water, just a personal preference, so I wait for it to get warm, and then I put it on the shower option, which I'm about to do. But before I do, I just wanted to tell you that this is really important to make sure there's enough water saturating this soil, because the dome goes on after this and it doesn't get watered again until they germinate. And you don't want those seeds to dry out before that happens, because then you may lose those seeds for good. So you'll know when this gets nice and heavy, it'll feel saturated, and that's what you're after. And it's okay if there's some water in the bottom, because that's really how it's going to continue to absorb more moisture to keep the seeds wet to begin with. So I like to have some water in the bottom, and that's when you know you've got enough. So I'll put this on the shower option now and just really go at it. And the other thing about commercial seed starting mix, because it has a wetting agent in it, the water really gets in there. Unlike some of those products that you buy at the box stores that are just the seed starting mix, they don't have the wetting agent in it, and it doesn't seem like the water ever gets into that soil. It's very frustrating. But if you've ever done that, you're going to see the difference right here, because the water's going to go right in, and I really like that. The other thing is, this is allowing the seeds to really settle in to their new environment, and so the soil gets on top of it and just really gets them off to a good start. So I go back and forth in both directions. I'll check it. That's feeling about right. It's got good weight to it, so I know that it's fairly saturated, but there's no water yet at the bottom. Of course, it needs to drain down into that, but I can even afford to give it a little bit more. And like I said, as that water is draining through here into that tray below, it's going to catch it all and just hold it there, and then wick it back up into that soil medium as is needed while these seeds are germinating. And so that's all good. So I've got a plastic cover I'm going to put over this, and I'm going to take it down and put it under lights. The plastic cover is only there to hold the moisture in until these seeds germinate. And as soon as you see germination, you want to remove this plastic cover. But see that condensation cloud forming already? That's a really good sign. And you want that until they germinate. So that shows you, and you know for sure, there's good moisture in this seed starting chamber. That's a good sign. Okay, so these are the seeds that we just sowed. And you can see that condensation all built up on that dome. And again, you just leave that there until the seeds germinate. And I'm going to put this on my rack with all these other ones. And there's a heat mat underneath here. The heat mat provides supplemental heat, of course, to about 70 degrees ambient temperature. And that's really going to help these seeds germinate, especially when this room is really cool in the evening or whatever. It's not as heated as the rest of the house. And so it's nice to have that extra heat, that bottom heat, that's going to help stimulate those seeds to germinate and help their roots to develop too. So you could leave the heat mat on through the whole time that they're at this smaller stage before you bump them up. I usually don't worry about that. My primary focus with the heat mat is to make sure that it helps get those seeds germinated faster. That's the main thing. And it gets the temperature to about 70, maybe 75 degrees soil temperature, and that's perfect for these seeds. So again, leave the dome on until the seeds start to show signs of germinating, and then take it off and just make sure the moisture stays adequate in the tray after that. If you left the dome on too long, you could run the risk of additional damping off. It's a fungal disease that can kill the seedlings. So just eliminate the dome once you see the beginning signs of germination. The other important thing you need to do, see these fans right here? You want to have air movement across the soil surface. Once that dome comes off, you want to keep air moving, and that helps cut down the risk of what's called damping off. That's fungal disease that could kill the seedlings. But you probably won't have that be an issue if you have really good seed starting mix like what I recommended, or just buying a quality product that says seed starting mix. It's going to be sterile. It's not going to have that disease in the soil to begin with typically, but to play it safe, this is why you do that. Also, the lighting. Now these are LED lights. This happens to be 300-watt lighting. It's 21 inches above the top of the seedlings, and this is my second year doing LED lights, and I've experimented with this, and I've had good success since last year in finding the sweet spot, but it's a little bit tricky to figure it out. It depends on the wattage of the LED, but I've got some podcast links that are going to be really helpful to you, and I'll put them in this post, and you ought to listen to those because it's going to walk you through the lighting issues and the other seed starting things to consider. So this was just a really quick tutorial of what I do for my process. It's very successful, and if you want to replicate that, you just learned how to do it. But that podcast, there's 4 episodes that are really going to get you to the level of knowing a lot more than what I talked about today. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope I remembered to say everything I wanted to say, but this should get you well on your way. So good luck, everybody.